Alright, so we're checking out the BETAFPV Pavo35 in this video, and just like the Pavo25 V2 that came out, I think it was like maybe a week or two ago, very, very similar in the design. Obviously, slight change in the electronics, especially in the motor, to carry obviously a heavier load and bigger props. So this is 3.5 inches versus 2.5 inches previously. I'm not going to talk about this, of course, because I did a whole video on this one already. I'll link that down in the video description. But yeah, before I get into the video, I do want to let you guys know that there's a Black Friday sale going on at BETAFPV. Now there's a code that'll get you, like, I think 15% off of like most things on the site. I put that on the screen here. There's another code that they sent me, and I'm not 100% sure what the discount is. I heard it, well, they told me it varies based on what you select. So I'll put that code up here. It's like, has my name in it. And supposedly it's a more of a discount. So you might want to try both and see if you happen to buy anything, which one gives you the better discount. And I believe the new ones here aren't included in those because obviously they're newer. So the discount's going to apply to some of the older stuff. But anyway, a link to the Black Friday sale will be down in the description along with the codes. And we'll get back to the video here. So basically, you know, the big difference between the two is the size and the bigger motors. The top plate here is a little bit bigger. It's a 3mm top plate. It's a single piece, and we have the same CNC aluminum standoffs here that are holding the prop guard on. Obviously, the prop guard's bigger and more robust here to handle a little bit more, I guess, weight of everything. And with those standoffs, you have the same 4 screws on the outside, so you can take those off, and then you can take this bottom plate off, and then the prop guard will come off, and then you have access to the flight controller. So it's 4 screws now. I think previously in the older versions it was like 6 screws, so much easier to get the prop guard off and on if you want to swap this out if it's broken. And then the same mechanism here for installing the air unit, or VTX, is going to be the same for both of them. It's identical, so I talked about all that in the previous video. And again, this one comes as a kit, a plug and play. I think they're doing that a lot now. You basically can have your choice of adding analog, Walksnail, HG0, VTX, DJI-03, etc. You got the same soft-mounted camera plate here to mount your FPV camera, as well as your GoPro or some sort of action camera on top. And, you know, the reason you want to go with a bigger 3.5 inch here is so you can carry even a bigger and heavier GoPro. So in this case, this is the Hero, I think Hero 11 Black. And so I'm carrying a full-size GoPro on here. Yes, you can put an 03 in here and obviously get great footage from the 03, but in my opinion, you might, you know, if you're going to go really big like this, you might as well carry the full-size GoPro, because these are cinematic quads in my opinion. I know there's going to be some people out there that are going to be like, oh, I'm going to put an 03 on here, make it nice and light, and do freestyle with it. Yeah, you can do that, but in my opinion, flying freestyle on something with prop guards with all this weight on the outside of the quad, in my opinion, doesn't really feel that great to me. So I tend to just not fly these in sort of like the freestyle, sort of aggressive flying mode. I know that a lot of people are like, well, why don't you fly it like freestyle? Well, why should I race a minivan? Yes, that's kind of like the same question. You know, when I hear that, like, well, you should fly your Cinewhoop as a racer. Like, I don't really feel like racing my minivan. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that do that. There's a genre of people do that, but I'm not one of those people, so I don't fly these that way. If it's a freestyle quad, I'll fly as a freestyle quad. If it's a cinematic quad, I'll fly it cinematically. That's kind of how I roll. The motors on here are much bigger, of course, to carry the extra weights. These are these new lava motors that BETAFPV just came out with. I haven't seen these before. 2006 in size, so 20 millimeters wide and 6 millimeter high stator, 2400 kV. I don't believe this comes in another kV. This is this one. It's just basically you're going to run 6S on this one here with this Gem Van 3.5 inch prop. I might be mistaken because I got this early. They didn't even send me the link to the product yet, so I don't have all the specs yet. So if I miss something, obviously I don't know it. So check down in the video description. There'll be a link there, and then you can click on the product page and get the specs that you might be missing. There might be a forest version. I'm not 100% sure. The flight controller here is the same that was in the Pavo35 V2. So it's the F7 all-in-one, and I believe these are 35 amp ESCs. So yeah, 32-bit ESCs on here, and it has the same layout. Yes, the 35 amp version 2 all-in-one. So it's got the same plug there for your DJI O3 or DJI Air unit, and then they have some diagrams here for receivers and other, like analog VTX, for example. You could refer to this. This is included, of course, in the documentation. And then they have one more thing here that shows you a little bit about some specs on the actual, like the top plate and how to put it together, stuff like that. So that, not a whole lot of documentation included. That's about it. You get your LEDs. Of course, I never install these. There is a plug on the back. I'll show you where you can plug that in. And then these there's some adhesive in here. You can obviously put them on the outside of the duct, but again, adds more weight. You get a bag of screws. I used some of these already to mount the Vista VTX there. And you get a hex key and some extra screws. You have some spare screws here, and you get a spare set of props. And then if you're using the O3, you're going to get this special plug here. I had another plug on there already from another quad that had the other end, and then of course on the Vista it's soldered on the one side. So I just pulled that off of the other quad, put this in here, and plugged it in. So I didn't use this, but if you have an O3, you would use this one. Comes with Express LRS version 3 receiver and the same T antenna in the back here. Now they moved the power plug to the front. So it's an XT60, of course, now with the bigger battery instead of in the back. So on the Pavo V2 here, it's in the back, which is, I was kind of wondering why they moved it to the front, because it's, when you put the battery on here, and put the cord in there, the battery cord is rubbing against the camera, the GoPro, when you have it at an angle like this. And so I would have rather seen this here in the back. They could have clearly have done that. I mean, they could have made this carbon plate a little bit, pushed it a little bit further back here and made a little room here for the plug. I think that would have been better, because this plug does get in the way of the GoPro in this setup here. So obviously if you have an O3, that's not going to matter. You're not going to fly a GoPro. But in my case, it does. So if you're flying a GoPro, this is not optimal. I would have rather seen that here in the back, like on the Pavo 25. And the other thing is the plug itself, obviously it's, it's screwed into the carbon plates. It's nice and secure, but you can see, if the camera probably isn't going to focus there, there it goes, that where the wire is soldered onto the plug is completely exposed. There's no heat shrink, or I would have liked to see like a liquid electrical tape. I think that's what you would put on there, or something to cover it up, so that, because those contacts are fairly close together, as you can see right there. You could short out, and it is a 6S battery. So, maybe if you get like a piece of rock or something that's conductive, that gets caught in there, for example, then you're going to start frying stuff. So I'm going to let them know about that. Hopefully they'll address that and just put some liquid electrical tape on that before they send it out. But otherwise, it's pretty much as expected. I've flown a lot of these 3.5-inch Cinewhoops. They can carry the GoPro, no problem, plenty of power. Get a pretty good flight time. And I flew this 1300 6S. It fits on here just about right. This is from GMB. I'll link this in the video description as well. I get roughly 6 to 7 minutes of flight time, which is, I think, adequate for that. If you want to get more flight time, I say go with a 1500 and might be able to squeeze 8 minutes out of that battery. Yeah, okay, so yeah, just the quad by itself weighs 267.3, and then with the 6S 1300, we're at 460.6, and then this is a Hero 11 with battery. We're pushing 614.6. So yeah, I mean, these 2006 motors can handle this much weight, really no problem. But you're looking at like basically about the weight of a 5-inch quad, and so obviously 5-inch quad with 5-inch props and no prop guards is going to be able to fly freestyle way better than this. So if you're looking for something specifically for freestyle, don't get this. Get a 5-inch quad instead. You're going to be around the same way, maybe a little bit more with a GoPro, and it's going to perform way better for freestyle. This is specifically to get cinematic footage, so I highly urge you, don't fall for that trap. I know there's people out there like, oh, I can just buy a Cinewhoop and I can do everything. I can race, I can freestyle, and I can do Cinewhooping. That ain't true. You can do flippy floppies with this thing, but you ain't going to like it. It's just not that enjoyable. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to be going to your neighborhood FPV race and winning any races with this thing if the pilots are any good. So I don't know why people think that they can just buy a Cinewhoop and think that it'll be great for everything, because that ain't true. That's just completely false. All right, so I put links down in the video description to the full screen 4K flight footage that was stabilized. So I think I used gyro flow this time for the Hero 11 footage. I'll also put the full DVR flight down in the video description as well, so you can compare that to the stabilized flight and see how much of a difference there is. Actually, this was pretty locked in terms of the PID tune, nice and solid in my opinion. So they did a pretty good job, at least for this setup. I kind of like was guessing that, you know, they were probably going for somewhere around this weight. If your build's a lot lighter, maybe if you have an 03 and it's too light and you have some issues with wobbles, you might want to put more battery on just to have more weight, because I think that for this setup, for this motor, if it's too light, it's going to have more wobbles, because the PID tune I think is intended for a little bit heavier setup, which is I think correct, because you want to go, you know, they're going to go for people that well, they're going to tune it for people that are going to fly like this with a GoPro. If they tune it for just an 03 and make it tuned for a really light setup, then when someone flies it like this with a GoPro, it's not going to fly very good at all. It's going to fly pretty terrible. So yeah, if you're going to fly it really light, then you're going to probably have to retune it for the less weight, or just add extra battery to bring the weight up. All right, so that'll cover for this video. Links to everything down in the video description, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.